Like any team, they've went through a gauntlet of a schedule here, like we all face in this league and are going to face in this league. So they had a week to prepare. I'm sure they will be ready to go. Obviously, we need to be ready to go. It'll be a great challenge. Another really high quality opponent in the Big Ten.
Okay, we'll start with Adam Jardy.
Sorry, wouldn't unmute there. Chris, can you give us an update, the latest on Jimmy Sotos and CJ Walker, and I guess maybe Ibrahima, anybody else that's dealing with stuff?
Yes, CJ and Jimmy will both be out. Excuse me. Sorry about that. CJ and Ibrahima are both out with injuries. Ibrahima's still returning from his MCL sprain. CJ from torn ligaments, and Jimmy continues to be evaluated. So no definitive word right now on him. But CJ will be out again with torn ligaments, and Ibrahima will be out with an MCL sprain.
So how do you prepare for the game when you're without knowing if a Jimmy's going to be available? I mean, we saw some other guys have to step into some roles the other night. Are you comfortable with having to push Michi more if that comes to that, or what sort of things do you look at as you prepare for this game and hoping that you might have a Jimmy available?
I think that's something that we'll keep somewhat close to the vest. But I think, Adam, you're looking at all options at this point. We've talked about such a rare situation with injuries to one specific position dating back to our summer with Abel. So I think it'll require guys to move around different positions if Jimmy's not available, and we'll have to have a really good understanding of what we're trying to do. I've got confidence in Michi. It's a lot to ask of a young man who just joined your program to step in and play a Big Ten game of this caliber, but we do expect him to play for sure.
Okay, next up, Patrick Murphy.
Chris, you mentioned the gauntlet that every team goes through in this league, but you look at Northwestern, and I think quick look, you see 3 straight losses since they played you guys last, but then you look at who those were, and it's 3 very good teams. What have you taken from those games that maybe were different than what you guys were able to do, and how much does that game, that loss, motivate guys any extra given the way it happened?
I think anytime you lose, obviously that stays with you for sure, Patrick. I think, as much as anything though, right now you're trying to, you're trying to get better. You're trying to play more quality possessions. So, we're all prisoners of the moment in sports, and we all make too many declarations based on, one win or one loss or this or that. I think that's all part of us as humans, but you try to limit that as a coach and stick to the process of getting better and improving. And certainly, I think that's our challenge. Can we be better than what we were last time we played them? I think everybody's motivated equally, and for the most part at this point. So that's our focus right now is trying to see if we can play more quality basketball. And those games were all kind of unique. All 3 they played. I mean, 2 of them were on the road to top 10 teams, and the third was at home to a team just outside the top 10. And so I think there's plenty of understanding of the challenge that those guys faced.
Was there anything in particular that when you look back at when you guys played Northwestern, that stood out as this is what we have to do better to come out with the win this time?
I think we turned it over a few too many times, which we've not said a whole lot this year, Adam or Patrick. But we turned it over a few too many times, and that led to easy scores for them. They've got really good positional length across the board, particularly really at every position, but definitely the 2 through kind of 4 or 5, they just got long bodies, and they were able to get some turnovers, being in gaps on us.
Okay, next up, Nicole Kraft.
Hey, Chris. I was hoping you could talk to us a little bit about Michi and his progression since he's been here. I mean, you know, as you well know, it's a big ask, all the things that have been asked of him to transition out of his high school experience. And now he's going to have an even bigger role than you probably anticipated. So what progression have you seen since he first got to the program, and kind of how are you evaluating him at this point?
Yeah, Nicole, he's done a good job for us. You know, it's a lot to ask of a young man, as you mentioned. You know, I don't think we anticipated that that he could be counted on as much as he is right now. So, you know, you have to be careful with the young man's confidence at this point. Now, he's a really confident kid, which helps, but it's just a lot to throw up. We're talking about a young man who just started live practice a couple times last week. And now you're asking him to go and play a top 15 team on the road and a team in Northwestern who's by all metrics top, I think 25, 30, 40 in the country. So it's a really difficult task, but I know he's anxious. He's looking forward to it. We've got to simplify things for him as much as possible so that he's not overthinking. You know, it's just, again, such a unique situation that we have with our injuries, that it's going to require everybody to really respond the right way.
Thank you.
Okay, Tim Hall, you're up next. Tim, can't hear you. Okay, audio not working. I'll go to Adam Jardy.
Chris, the success you guys have had on the glass this season, I know rebounding can sometimes maybe be a stat that gets inflated a little bit, but why do you think you've been able to be as effective as you have, and how important has that been to the success that you have had?
You know, I think some of it has to do, we're a little bit bigger at some of the guard spots, Adam, and you know, I think that's helped. And then Kyle and EJ and Zed at those kind of forward spots, they're good rebounders. Justice is a good positional rebounder. So I think that maybe the most significant difference has been on the offensive glass. You know, Gene's helped with that. Musa has helped with that. Justice has helped with that. We've got to get better on the defensive glass, and we've got to continue to emphasize the offensive glass as being an important part of our overall offensive efficiency. I think for us to be successful, it has to continue to be a point of emphasis.
And sort of along those lines, the way that Kyle and EJ have both kind of been able to play with each other to a pretty high level, and at times have really carried you. Did you know that you could play them as much coming into the season together as you've been able to?
No, I don't think I did. You know, I think we anticipated that as a staff, that was going to be the look we were going to want to go with. But it's really evolved since the first practice, Adam. We've actually kind of changed them offensively and somewhat defensively within our system. We started out one way. We flipped it a little bit based on just, you know, observing them playing together and through, you know, really the first 30 practices. So they've got a really good chemistry together. I think they complement each other in a good way. And you're right. When we're playing well, Adam, those guys are at the center of it.
Do you consider either of them a center? Like,
Nah, not really. No, I really don't. We don't. I mean, if you're just going to number them, you just number them just to designate. But they're both forwards. You know, they're both forwards. And, you know, again, as we've said a number of times, it's the way a lot of college basketball plays. But no, I do consider them both forwards.
Okay, we'll go back to Tim.
Hey, sorry, Chris.
No worries, Tim.
I had a question about CJ again, and I'm just trying to get a read. It really seemed like a somber mood the first time we had that Zoom conference with you last week about his timetable. Are you looking at this at 5 games, 10 games, hoping to get him back this season. He looked like he was in good spirits too on the sideline in the last.
He's disappointed, but he's in great spirits. I mean, you know how kids are. He's a great teammate. He led from the front of the bench in our Rutgers game. He continues to lead in practice. You know, he's anxious to get back, Tim. I just don't know right now how that thing is going to heal in the time frame on it. You know, we've heard a number of different time frames, and at this point, we just don't know. I don't think he'll come back until he feels comfortable that it's healthy enough to, and I completely understand that. But he's anxious to come back. He knows we need him. I think he sees that, and he's anxious to get back with his brothers.
I'm also just wondering, you know, you played a big chunk of the season now, just with everything that's happened and how you look at the conference, maybe the rest of college basketball. Just what are your feelings? What's your confidence level in your team right now as well?
Well, listen, I really like our group. I like our team. I feel good about this group of guys. But I don't really spend a whole lot of time, Tim, you know, taking a step back and right now, because you're just in the midst of the daily grind and preparing your team to get better. But, you know, like every team, you know, we're going to experience adversity, but I really love coaching this group. Obviously, I hope and I'm optimistic that at some point we'll get the injuries behind us. But I really like this group, and we've got guys that have really, you know, performed well for stretches. Hopefully we can get some consistency to how we play overall.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll go back to Patrick Murphy.
Chris, I'm not sure I've heard you talk about this yet, but the NCAA rule, or the NCAA announcing the tournament in Indiana, just your thoughts on that. Obviously a state you're familiar with, and, you know, buildings you're familiar with and whatnot, and playing everyone in that state. Just curious what you made of that decision by the NCAA.
Well, I think it's a smart idea, great idea to put it in one city, one venue, to get it in a place where I think they can control as much as as much as possible some of the outside factors. You're trying to mitigate risk as much as possible in this. But outside of that, Patrick, honestly, I've not given it much thought. You know, I think, you know, without making too much of it, you know, for coaches, we're kind of in a hole a little bit. Like we don't, at least I think most of us, we don't really engage with anything outside of our team or anything else that doesn't necessarily affect our team. And last night watching the game was one of the few times where you kind of had a chance to put your mind on something else. I'm not saying that's healthy. I'm just saying that's reality. So beyond that, I took a moment last week with some of the stuff that was going on in the country to observe that. And that was tough to see, but you're such in a tunnel here in terms of your own team and the progress of your own team.
Go back to Nicole.
Chris, I just wanted to follow up on what you just said about, you know, what happened last week. And, you know, D'Angelo Russell kind of called out the media and asked, you know, they asked him how he felt about it, and he turned it around on them. And I'm curious, what, if any, conversations you've had as a team about the circumstances and the environment and the racial inequity that we saw. And just, you know, we don't like, you know, in some ways we don't like to see the world interfering with sports, but that's what sports is all about, is this intersection of sport and society. And so how do you kind of broach such an incredibly weighty topic with them, and how do they respond to that?
You know, I think in general, my first responsibility is to our players. That's what their families, that's what they did when they sent them here to under our care. So that is my first responsibility. And outside of that, you know, I think what impacts them, what concerns them, what bothers them, and obviously dating back to the summer and all of the conversation and dialogue that happened in the summer, you know, that's my responsibility. And as I've said a number of times, I didn't get into this profession just to be a basketball coach. I got in the profession to help young men grow, and in whatever way we can as a staff, help them grow and mature and see the world from a bigger perspective and see the world from a bigger angle and a bigger place. And I think the conversations that we've had since the summer have been engaging and enlightening for me, probably more so than them. You know, we had a time we had a meal late because we got tested at Rutgers, so we didn't get to the hotel until I think it was around 10 or 10:30, and we had a meal there together, and I sat down with them and we started talking about it. We had a conversation. It was interesting hearing some of their thoughts, but I'll keep that all between us. I just think they're my first responsibility in this, and obviously it impacts them in different ways, but it all impacts them.
Okay, looks like that's all, Coach. Appreciate you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
Chris.
Thanks, Dan.
Yep, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Dan.
Thanks, Dan. See you.
Yep, have a good one.
Yep, you too.